coloring my character Elian with her cute little sidekick Flink. This is, I think, her second costume in the movie, where she usually wears this when she...
No one on the conservative side of America seems able to tolerate the star of this movie anymore. To them, she has become a symbol of everything wrong with modern Hollywood: arrogance, entitlement, and a lack of self-awareness. They say she sounds bitter and angry, like someone who resents the very character she was hired to bring to life. Instead of portraying the beloved princess with warmth and grace, she comes across, in their eyes, as an insufferable and whiny brat who talks down to fans and critics alike. But Rachel Zegler, the young actress at the center of this storm, insists that's not who she really is. She claims she's deeply grateful for every opportunity she's been given, even if, at times, the public response has turned her dream into a nightmare. "I can be having the greatest time," she explained, "and still wish people would stop sending me death threats." In an attempt to calm the growing hostility, Rachel decided to speak directly to her audience. But what was meant to be a heartfelt and clarifying message quickly became something else entirely. The video she posted, filmed from what appeared to be her bedroom, did not soothe the chaos. It poured gasoline on a fire that was already raging out of control. Within seconds of hitting post, her words spread across the internet like a spark in dry grass. In the video, Rachel sat under soft lighting, her expression a mixture of exhaustion, hurt, and simmering defiance. She looked straight into the camera, her eyes heavy but determined, and began to speak about the pain of being misunderstood. She said that despite all the hate and mockery online, there were still people showing up, still lining up to see her work and support her journey. Her voice trembled between tearful sincerity and the sharp edge of frustration as she defended her performance and called out the relentless negativity that had haunted the film from the very beginning. At one point, she drew a poetic comparison to the ancient statue of the winged victory of Samothrace, a piece of art that arrived at the Louvre in fragments, yet still draws crowds from around the world. "She came to the Louvre in pieces," Rachel said, "and people still line up to see her. I can only hope that despite my flaws, my cracks, and my breaks, and there are many, people will continue to wait in line to see me." Her message was clear: imperfection doesn't erase value. But the tone, defiant and emotional, left audiences divided. Then came the line that sealed the moment in internet history. With a quiet firmness that bordered on anger, she told those who disagreed with her, "If you don't like it, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business." It was a statement meant to reclaim control, but it came off to many as dismissive and proud, a plea wrapped tightly in ego. Within minutes, the internet's response was brutal. The clip went viral across platforms: TikTok, X, and YouTube, spawning countless stitches, reaction videos, and parodies. Some users mimicked her voice, others turned her monologue into comedy sketches, while a few even added dramatic background music to exaggerate her tone. What Rachel hoped would be her redemption arc became the complete opposite: a digital feeding frenzy. Soon, hashtags like #MyerSnowFlop began trending worldwide, comment sections filled with ridicule. "Who's surprised Snow White flopped?" One viral tweet read, "They cast the most out-of-touch, least genuine person in Hollywood, and Hollywood is full of them." The backlash had reached a point of no return. Rachel's words, intended to express vulnerability, were being dissected, mocked, and turned into meme material. And through it all, one truth became clear. In the age of the internet, no matter how sincere or emotional your message may be, once the tide of public opinion turns against you, every word you speak becomes fuel for the fire. Instead of reclaiming her story, Rachel Zegler had unknowingly handed her critics their biggest victory yet. What was supposed to be a fairy tale comeback had turned into a full-blown digital witch trial, the kind of public storm that only modern Hollywood could conjure, one where hashtags replaced torches and comment sections became the gallows. And in the eyes of the online mob, the villain wasn't the evil queen from Snow White. No, the villain was Rachel Zegler herself. The transformation was astonishing. Rachel had entered the scene as Disney's Golden Girl, a young, talented, seemingly humble actress plucked from obscurity and destined to carry a legacy title. But somewhere between the red carpets and interviews, between empowerment speeches and viral sound bites, the narrative shifted. To a growing number of people, especially those on the political right, Rachel had become the embodiment of everything they despised about modern Hollywood. Commentators, pundits, and YouTubers pounced, turning her name into a cultural lightning rod. One conservative host put it bluntly, "Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy, and about abortion. But the reality is, she's just not stable." He went on, voice dripping with mockery. "Like the majority of Hollywood, they're not stable people, and I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White." The clip went viral, not just because of what was said, but because it captured a growing sentiment. People were tired of being lectured to by celebrities. They wanted fantasy, not politics, escapism, not activism. And Rachel Zegler, fairly or not, had become the poster child for what they believed was the downfall of Disney's storytelling magic. Audiences hadn't forgotten the interviews either. The ones where Rachel laughed off the 1937 original Snow White as weird and creepy. In one resurfaced clip, she smirked as she described the prince as a guy who literally stalks her. She said, "The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's this big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah, weird, weird." It was meant as a joke, but it didn't land that way. Fans didn't hear humor, they heard disdain. Disdain for something sacred. The innocence, the romance, the magic of the original had been rewritten as a joke from the mouth of the very woman cast to revive it. The backlash intensified when another clip surfaced, one where Rachel laughed and said she'd elbow everyone out of the way just to play the part. Then, in a different interview, she joked that the male lead scenes might be cut entirely. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. These weren't just offhand comments anymore, they were being compiled into Rachel Zegler cringe compilations shared on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Each new clip reinforced the idea that she didn't respect the role, the story, or the fans who loved it. And every time she tried to clarify her intent, it only fueled the fire more. Then came the quote that truly sealed her reputation. "If I'm gonna stand there for 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it's streamed online." That one line, blunt, unapologetic, and very modern, was replayed thousands of times. To her supporters, it was a feminist statement about fair pay. To her critics, it was arrogance disguised as empowerment. But the biggest blow came when Rachel proudly declared that her version of Snow White wasn't going to be saved by the prince. She said, "We wrote a Snow White who's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." That comment might have sounded empowering in a boardroom or on a press tour, but to lifelong fans of the fairy tale, it was like rewriting the Bible. People didn't want Snow White to become a warrior queen or a political symbol. They just wanted a story about kindness, courage, and love conquering evil. The more Rachel talked about redefining the character, the more it seemed like she was tearing down what people cherished most about her. When opening weekend finally arrived, the numbers told a brutal truth. Snow White brought in just $45 million domestically, a figure so low it sent shockwaves through Disney's corporate offices. For a film with one of the company's most legendary princesses, it was a disaster. By comparison, The Little Mermaid, despite its own share of controversy, had opened at $95 million. For Snow White to pull in less than half that amount was nothing short of catastrophic. Analysts called it a warning shot. Disney investors quietly panicked. And behind closed doors, studio insiders whispered that executives were in full meltdown mode. According to one report, they had been struggling to manage Rachel's image for years, trying to balance her outspoken personality with the polished Disney brand. One insider even claimed that Disney had orchestrated a damage control moment, asking Rachel to post something cheerful to calm fans down. They encouraged her to tweet something lighthearted and positive like, "Yay! Snow White! Can't wait! So excited to play her!" She did exactly that. And the tweet took off. It garnered millions of views, a flood of likes, and finally, for a brief second, things seemed to be turning around. But then, just minutes later, Rachel followed it up with another tweet. And never forget, Free Palestine. It was a political statement. deeply personal, heartfelt, and controversial. And in that single moment, whatever narrative Disney's PR team had tried to craft unraveled completely. The tweet sparked outrage, dividing her audience even further. The internet exploded. Some praised her for her courage. Others accused her of derailing the film's promotion with politics once again. From that point on, the Snow White discourse wasn't just about a movie anymore. It was about identity, ideology, and the growing fracture between Hollywood and its audience. The film's story had been rewritten, but so had Rachel's legacy. What was once meant to be her shining moment, her coronation as a new kind of Disney princess, had turned into something else entirely. Her interviews became memes, her words twisted into slogans, and her career, for the time being, became a symbol of how fast the internet can crown you one day and crucify you the next. In the end, Snow White wasn't just a movie. It became a mirror, reflecting the deep divide between traditional storytelling and modern social politics, between nostalgia and activism, between fantasy and reality. And caught in the middle of that mirror, like a trapped reflection, was Rachel Zegler, the actress who tried to modernize a legend and instead found herself written into a very different kind of fairy tale. One where the castle had already burned, and the happily ever after was nowhere in sight. The situation had already spiraled beyond repair, but Disney wasn't ready to give up. In a last-ditch effort to regain control, the studio made a move few had ever heard of. They flew an executive, one of the producers themselves, directly out to meet with Rachel Zegler in person. The message was clear, calm, and carefully worded. "Rachel," they said, "you're entitled to your political views. We respect that. But right now, you're promoting a major studio film, a family film, and these statements aren't helping. Maybe you could share those opinions privately, with your friends, or write them in your diary, just not online. Please take the tweet down." But Rachel refused. She stood her ground. To her, this wasn't about a studio image, it was about conviction, about staying true to what she believed in. Yet, to the executives watching box office forecasts plummet, it felt like watching a slow-motion train wreck they couldn't stop. The moment she refused, the studio's crisis mode escalated. Disney hired a special media consultant to shadow her at all times. Someone whose entire job was to monitor interviews, flag potential controversies, and make sure she didn't spark another firestorm before the film's release. But no consultant could undo the damage that had already been done. Rachel's past comments about Snow White, the prince, and women who don't need to be saved were still making the rounds online. Interviews were being clipped, remixed, and mocked relentlessly. Even her previous connections became part of the controversy. Steven Spielberg, who had produced her breakout film West Side Story, was suddenly dragged into the discourse, as online critics dissected everything from his involvement to Rachel's comments about white people who asked if she was really Latina. By now, audiences weren't just ignoring Snow White, they were actively turning against it. Viewers flooded IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes with negative reviews. Within days, the film's rating plummeted to 1.6, making it the lowest-rated movie in IMDb history. That wasn't just a box office failure. That was cinematic infamy, a permanent stain on the film's legacy and on Rachel's rising career. And yet, amid the wreckage, the show had to go on. At what should have been a triumphant moment, a celebratory awards night, Rachel Zegler walked the red carpet alongside co-star Gal Gadot. The cameras flashed, the lights shimmered, but the tension between them was unmistakable. Both actresses smiled for the photographers, but their expressions told a different story. Discomfort, exhaustion, and the weight of a PR nightmare neither could escape. As the two took the stage to present an award, Rachel's voice echoed through the hall. "Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen," she began. "Their work makes the impossible seem possible." The words were scripted, rehearsed, yet behind them lingered an unspoken irony. The fantasy she was describing, the illusion of movie magic, was exactly what had slipped through her fingers. But just when it seemed like things couldn't possibly get worse, another storm rolled in. Political commentators, the same ones who had mocked Rachel for her interviews, now turned their attention to Snow White itself. The film was no longer being discussed as a simple box office flop. It had become a cultural battlefield. Analysts, reviewers, and online pundits began dissecting the movie's story, searching for deeper meaning, or, in their words, hidden agendas. The term communist undertones started popping up in reviews and Reddit threads. Viewers claimed the movie wasn't just politically correct, it was pushing ideology. One viral video broke it down scene by scene. "All right, guys," the reviewer began, "I watched Snow White so you don't have to. Let's get into it." He went on to describe the film's world, a utopian society where everyone shares equally, where class and monarchy barely exist. "Snow White doesn't get her name from the fairness of her skin anymore," he said. "Instead, she gets it from surviving a snowstorm. Her parents are king and queen, not of a kingdom, but of a socialist paradise. Everyone shares, everyone's equal, everyone's mindful of resources. That's the new idea of fairest of them all." The clip exploded across YouTube and TikTok, racking up millions of views. Comment sections turned into debate arenas, with people arguing over whether Disney had actually turned its most iconic princess into a metaphor for Marxist ideology. Some conservative commentators accused the studio of reprogramming fairy tales, stripping away their innocence and replacing them with political messaging. And once again, Rachel was at the center of it. Critics accused her of embodying Hollywood's arrogance, a symbol of how far Disney had strayed from its roots. "It's not about art anymore," one headline read. "It's about agenda." Even neutral audiences, who might have been willing to give her a second chance, began to lose interest. All the goodwill that had once followed Rachel from her West Side Story debut, the praise, the Oscar buzz, the reputation as a rising star, evaporated overnight. What was meant to be her defining role had become her downfall. Her attempt to modernize a beloved fairy tale came across not as bold or refreshing, but as dismissive and tone-deaf. What she saw as confidence, the public interpreted as arrogance. Her emotional pleas to fans, her efforts to reclaim her story, only deepened the divide. And in the end, Snow White didn't just fail to connect with audiences, it detonated her image completely. What had once been the dream role of a lifetime, a crown jewel in Disney's legacy, turned into a curse. Instead of leading her career to new heights, it fractured her reputation and cast a long shadow over her future. Rachel Zegler had wanted to redefine Snow White for a new generation, but the story that emerged wasn't about empowerment or reinvention. It was about pride, backlash, and the brutal speed with which the internet can turn a fairy tale into a cautionary tale. In the end, the magic mirror didn't reflect the fairest of them all. It reflected the reality of a young star caught in the flames of modern outrage. What began as a dream had become a nightmare, and this time, no amount of Disney magic could save her from it.